I couldn't remember who I was or where I was going. All I had was a feeling that drew me into this direction, and so I kept walking and swimming. Survival was my top priority. But once in a while I got flashes of memory of what had happened to me. I remembered falling out of the sky, but I had no time to question it. It was night, monsters everywhere, and I had no shelter. Eventually I reached a shore, and using my bare hands I used the tree to craft a boat. It was peaceful on the sea. Another memory. There were people around me. They were floating, and they watched me while I was being carried by a weird machine. Who were they? I kept sailing through the night until the next morning. Finally it was safe to gather some food and cook my first meal and upgrade my tools. Eventually I continued my journey, and I was wondering about the bottle I carried with me. This is the only thing I had in my possession after the fall. It started raining, and the lush oak trees turned into a dark forest. It was scary, but I had no choice but to follow the urge and keep on going. But then, a blue light in the distance. The feeling inside of me got stronger. I climbed up the mountain, getting closer and closer. What could it be? I reached it. I opened the chest. There was Mate. Everything rushed back to me. I remembered. During a concert, I fell asleep and they kidnapped me with a flying machine. They didn't want me anymore, so they sent me off into the distance. I kept flying until the world turned upside down. The world seemed to suddenly change and I found myself falling out of the sky. But now I'm here. I remember my powers. I remember what I'm capable of. So I will rebuild my kingdom right here. This is my new place. You wonder where I am? Here are my coordinates. Come and find me. You know what? All those players who kicked me out and made me come all the way here, they are going to suffer. This is now a 1.19.2 server. All your hacks will become useless, and the old server will become hell. For that, I created a basic server plugin that when players move will fling TNT into random directions. This way I can destroy all of their beautiful builds. Look at it, how confused they are about what is happening. All the time they invested into building this place, and I will take it away within minutes. Enjoy hell. But I'm here now, and I gotta say, I love this place. I think I can build something really cool on these thin floating pillars. And deep down, some more secrets are waiting for us. But before we try to go there, let's set up camp. On the long walk here, I gathered a few materials, so we can already place down a crafting table, get a bed, and use an oven to cook some of the meat. But where do we go from here? The area looks amazing. I love the change of scenery from the previous area. Lots of mountains and a village on the horizon. So let's start with the basic game loop. Cutting down trees to gather wood, set up chest, and maybe mine some coal and iron. This is always the most relaxing and enjoyable part in Minecraft for me. The start of a new world. So join me. As you can see, I'm using my fly hack to get around, but as you know, I'm not using a hacked client I downloaded somewhere. Actually, we figured out how to bypass the anti-fly check of the server in episode 4 of the series, but since then I actually changed the way how I do it. Back then I fully coded the movement. I look at the key presses and then modify the velocity and the movement of the player. But you know how the fly hack looks now? It's so much simpler. It's just one line. client player get abilities allow flying true. So during this whole project, at some point I realized that setting this, it's basically giving the player the ability to fly like in creative mode, which makes it so much easier for me not to handle each key press, and it feels a lot more familiar. But of course, this only has effect on the client side. The game client thinks we are in creative fly mode basically, which means we still need a bypass for the anti-fly kick. Quick refresher, the Minecraft server counts for how long you have been floating, kicking you when a threshold is reached. But when sending a brief movement packet downwards, as if you were falling, it resets this counter. I used to do it by setting the player position lower directly, but now I'm actually just sending a spoofed movement packet with this lowered position. To send this packet, I created this packet helper class that uses a client connection invoker mixin to access the private send immediately method. This can be used to send any Minecraft packet to the server immediately. Seeing this, it still feels like magic to me. I mean, not the flying, I mean being able to access a private method of the connection class. But we know already how it works because I introduced how modding works in episode 3, and there I also explained how mixins work. So this client connection invoker mixin exposes the private method now. Anyway, as you can see, I use what I learned over time and keep improving my hacks. After I gathered a lot of stuff like diamonds and even netherite, I wanted to really start working on the base, and the first thing I thought about building was an iron farm. Look what I found! I was looking for open mine shafts to find name tags and chests. I need that for the zombie in the iron farm, and came across a woodland mansion. Now that we are on 1.19, I had to kidnap an ally. And well, in the back you can see that slowly the iron farm is coming together. Unfortunately, I had some failures along the way. Like the first time I got a zombie, the villagers got scared and jumped to their death. Oops. But eventually I got a working farm. Iron golems spawn at the top in the water, get flushed down and fall into a lava kill room. Awesome. But I know you don't care about normal Minecraft, so let's talk about another hack of mine. If you carefully watch the episodes, you might remember that I created an XRay mod, but then never really used it afterwards. The reason for that was that it was incompatible with Optifine. Optifine is a mod to have fancy shaders and better performance, so it messes with the way how blocks are drawn. And my XRay mod was basically a block mixin that hooks the should draw side method and returns true or false if the current block is an important block. But that simple solution didn't work with Optifine. Now with the change to 1.19.2, I also switched from Optifine over to Sodium and Iris, another combo for performance and shaders, but it still broke my XRay mod. But this time I was motivated to try to make XRay work. But how would I do that? Well, XRay, how I want to do it, I basically just want to tell the game which blocks to draw or not. Somehow the game has to know that air blocks are not drawn, glass blocks are translucent and stone blocks are solid. So I started looking into the Iris and Sodium source code to see how they mess with blocks. Maybe I could figure out why my simple mixin doesn't work. And I started searching for should draw side because it's the only related method I knew. And in the Sodium code I stumbled over the block renderer class, which does sound very related. And it calls this should draw side method. Following it, it leads to a block occlusion cache. So occlusion means that something is covered by something else, meaning the block behind another blocks don't need to be rendered. And cache means it's storing that occlusion information. So maybe if I could figure out how to make this should draw side return true or false, depending on the block type, maybe I could get XRay to work. So I started going over all the code paths that return true and false, and is there maybe a way how I could control these return results? For example, to return a false, all I had to do is to make isSideInvisible return true, and this is called on the self state, which is a block state object. So we can create a mixin for block state. And here it is. Here I have a new mix-in for block state, and it hooks into the isSideInvisible function, and it returns false for all the important blocks and return true for all the unimportant blocks. So their side should be invisible. And that's basically the process I continued for a little bit, trying to control as much as I could. For example, down here is the isSolid method. I also overrode this one, and I did this for a few other interesting methods I discovered this way, including luminance and ambient occlusion, which controls how bright or dark blocks are drawn. In the end, I got a working X-ray mod, compatible with sodium and iris. I was so proud of myself, and of course I started using it right away. So that's what you saw in the footage when I hunted for diamonds and netherite. We are making good progress here, but of course we still have a long way ahead of us, and in the background you can see another project of mine. I needed wheat for breeding animals, as well as carrots and potatoes to trade with villagers for emeralds. So for that I cleared out an area for farming, and let me show you how it works. Here all the crops are grown, and check this out, farming goes brrr. This is another hack, I mean utility mod that I added. It's super simple. On each tick, I scan blocks around me and try to plant a crop. This actually means that we check if the block is farmland, and then we try to use a seed we either hold in our main or offhand. And in here, it checks if we are holding wheat, beetroot, potato, carrots, and so forth, and then calls interact block, trying to use the seed on the farmland. Super simple, but effective. I can just run through here and crops get automatically planted as long as I hold a seed in my hand. You can see I've been busy, but I have done so much more and I don't want to split up the video, so let me actually summarize all the stuff I made. When I was using my X-ray mod to look for diamonds, I actually came across a mob spawner, and in order to prepare for enchanted tools with mending and so forth, I wanted a small XP farm. So I transformed this mob spawner into a basic mob farm. I then also later upgraded it, trying to get more XP by adding a regular mob spawner area above it. I dug trenches with trapdoors, trying to flush the mobs down. I also went around and tried to place torches in some of the caves nearby, trying to increase the spawn rate in the dark place. It helped, but it wasn't super effective. Now back to the main base, I also wanted to add a second iron farm to increase the iron production rate, and I built it right below the previous farm, which I later realized that it was kinda dumb because I watched a video about iron golem spawning rules, and the villagers down there might see the iron golem falling down from the top and then not spawn their own. Anyway, it exists now. I then also added a kelp farm because I wanted to produce kelp blocks for furnaces, as well as maybe get a bit more XP this way. At first it was very small, but then I expanded it a little bit. Yeah, I always try to kind of integrate it into the rocks. Similarly, I also wanted to add a sugarcane farm, which I added into another pillar, but this time a bit further up and floating. On top of the pillars, I also started to add a new island where I wanted to place 2 villagers to get some first enchanted book traits. Mainly I wanted mending. Searching for mending books is pretty annoying, so I actually wrote another utility mod for that. It's pretty ugly code, but it worked. Let me first show it in action. When I destroy the lectern, it will automatically place a lectern again, then check the traits and print them below. If I'm not satisfied, I simply destroy the lectern again and it automatically places and checks it again. So it's still a little bit of manual process, but it's much faster than always checking the trait menu yourself. The code for that though is incredibly ugly. Let me show you. I have a simple state machine, and we first start by scanning for librarians nearby. So if we find a librarian, meaning a lectern must have been placed and turned that villager into a librarian, then we call interact entity onto that villager and go into the waiting for trade offer state. So this basically clicks on the librarian to open the trade menu. But now we have to go into the client connection mixin because here we are waiting for a trade offer packet. If we receive a trade offer packet and we are in the waiting for trade offer state, we can then print the enchanted book the villager offers. Additionally, we can also cancel the trade offer packet as well as the open screen packet because we only want to extract the book the villager offers for trading and display it as text. We don't want the client to show us the actual trade menu. Then in the next game tick, we come back into the main mod code. So when we got an offer, now we actually wait for the villager to lose the profession again. So if we are not satisfied with the book we got, we can now break the lectern again, which takes the professional way, triggers this code, which immediately places down a new lectern, which restarts the chain. If the villager turns into a librarian again, we interact with them again to get the trade offers, check the book, and wait for the lectern to be destroyed again. Very ugly, but effective. Basically just keep breaking the lectern until the text shows mending, or whatever you need. Unfortunately, I realized that the mob spawner XP farm is just a bit too slow to repair myself and to enchant items on the enchantment table, so I wanted to build a XP farm in the Nether. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I looked again for tutorials and watched Raceworks' video on an AFK XP farm. Basically, I adapted this design. You will see mine looks similar, but I tried to understand how it works and simplify it for my basic needs. For example, I don't need the piglin bartering. To build this, I had to collect a lot of magma blocks, but that turned out to be quite easy. But it was really nice to have a fly hack to build the farm, because obviously standing on magma blocks to build the platform doesn't work well. It took a few iterations and experiments, but eventually it seemed to work well. Here it is. So I have a zombified piglin with a name tag nearby, which is kind of the memory for the aggression towards me. Then I hit some other piglin. They will tell each other that I'm evil now, and I can go to the middle. Now they keep spawning, walking towards me, falling down a trap where then minecarts kill the piglins due to entity cramming. And because they were trying to attack me, I get XP for it. This is a super powerful farm, and I don't know why I never built this before. Maybe an Enderman farm in the end is even better, but this one here is an AFK farm, and I'm like so far away from the next stronghold, so I couldn't even go to the end if I wanted to. I guess that's all I have. This is how far I've gotten, and luckily nobody has disturbed me here yet. Probably thanks to my advanced position protection system, aka texture rotation. In the last episode, I actually hid a little teaser for this episode in the description, giving people the challenge to find me. And I followed some of their progress and coordinate cracking attempts, but nobody seemed to notice in my hacked mod menu texture rotation. This should tell them they cannot just brute force my location. Look, let me quickly turn texture rotation on and off. Did you just get excited now? Leaking the real rotation? No way you won't get it this easy. Let me actually create a quick super flat test world to show it in action. I also placed some grass so you can see the effect on that as well. Now, when I change the texture rotation state in the menu, you can see that several textures change. In episode 9 of this series, I learned about cracking coordinates from texture rotation, and I showed you the responsible code. This hash code function returns a seed given a X, Y, and Z location, which is then used to decide how to rotate the specific texture. So I just created a mix-in that changes these values. You will never find me here. Besides the new base location, I also changed the server IP again. And I mentioned at the beginning that on the day of the switch, I installed a plugin on the server that keeps spawning TNT. It was kind of fun to watch this initial destruction, but I haven't looked at it in a few weeks. So let's see how the server looks now. Oh my god, it's almost not recognizable anymore. This is the spawn area, and flying up to my base, it's crazy, it looks insane. Over there, the roller coaster, the sorter, damn. But it's time to shut off this server now, because this cost me 70 euros a month and running 2 servers in parallel is just a bit too expensive. So bye bye original 1.18 world, welcome 1.19. So far I've been undisturbed in my base, but you should really try to find it. I'm really far, believe me, but it will be worth it, because there are some secrets hiding deep below this base. Now, one last thing. Like last episode, I also wanted to showcase some community projects. Now that there is a new server IP, players had to start looking for it again, and I received many messages with various scanning projects. Here are some clips from Cheesburger implementing a server scanner in Rust, or here are the stats from a scanner by Nocturne. Ever wondered how many active Minecraft servers and active players there are? How many servers are online or offline mode? Or historical data, how did the amount of active servers and players change over time? For example, this spike here is early August, which should be around the 1.19.2 release, which apparently made people want to start new Minecraft servers. But besides scanning, I also received several mod showcases, people sharing their own hacking mods. Here are some clips from AliFurkan. For me, the most interesting part is always to see what kind of system they are using. Like, what is this resolution and taskbar? And also you can see how they host their own internal Git repository. Here is their WorldGuard bypass project. It's just really fun to see how much effort everybody puts into their own hacks. Just FYI, I received several showcase submissions, and unfortunately I cannot show everybody at the same time. Sometimes I also forget, I'm sorry, or sometimes you might showcase something I don't want to share just yet. There are quite some spoilers in some of the submitted videos. I'm sorry about that. Believe me, I don't leave you out intentionally, it's mostly random. I love everybody who is motivated enough to submit something. Thank you so much. Anyway, let's get to another full showcase. Actually, there was kind of a war on the server between bots and players. Philip, the owner of NoobBot, tried to implement an artificial whitelist. The idea is to fill up all slots on the server with bots and only leave when an allowed player either joins a specific proxy or hits an API endpoint. Then a bot leaves and opens up a slot. It was an attempt to block griefers from joining, but lots of other players hated the system because they couldn't join. So LeBogo implemented his own placeholder bot. He kept a bot around that leaves to open up a slot when he wants to join. So take it away.
Alright, first I start off by importing the Minecraft protocol and the Express packet. I create an Express application and I listen on the web server port, which I also have specified in the config. After this is running, I simply loop over each account. An account is basically the login credentials, and I can have multiple accounts and join different servers and use different users, and I call the join server function with each account credentials, and once this is called, I create a client. This basically logs into this Minecraft account and joins the server. Once the client is connected to the server, it logs that to the console and also registers an HTTP GET endpoint. That's it basically. It's not that much. I can give a quick demonstration of it. I have Minecraft running here, and if I run this URL in my browser, this is a local server in my home network, and I call the join /LeBogo endpoint. This should kick me out of the server with the reason that I logged in from another location. And this is how I can basically be online for 24/7 and no bot can take my spot. And if I log in again, then the script is getting disconnected, and yeah, that's basically everything it does. And as you may have seen in the other clips I sent, I have built some crypto chambers for each account, and yeah, most of the time my bots are just farming melons and selling them to the villagers. And yeah, that's it. I hope you liked it, and in the future I may expand it to an automatic sorting system and automate everything that humans don't like item sorting and keeping track of what item is in which chest, and yeah, that's it.